Welcome, everyone. We are live for the first ever live interview on Planet Nerdtooine. We've got Year of the Collector here. It is Nerdtooine, and we have a special guest, T.S. Luther, a very
Ah,
talented, and he's probably gonna get all I'll touchy when I say this, but a very talented, very wide ranged creator
thank you
that
so much, man.
I'm a big fan of. And one thing we do on this show is we only tell our personal opinions. We don't tell people, we don't give rankings and anything like that. But I will say my nerd to ween opinion. If you see a TS Luther book, you might want to pick that bad boy up because
Oh, thanks,
it
man.
might not be what you even think it is, and you'll like it nonetheless.
That means a
Yeah,
ton, man. Thank you.
No,
it's true. It's true. We was just talking about this today. Um, Luther, you have quite the range, my friend.
Thanks, man.
Right? I started to because I known I've known you for a while. Like we followed each other, we interact
Yeah.
with each other. You're always promoting your books, your next like you're always on the next thing, right? I looked you up, right? Because you're a guest. I should know something about you, right? So Luthor is a writer and co-creator of, and this is just what I could find: Tokyo Fire, The Mighty Craw, Growing Up, Alice, Lost in Wonderland. Um, what was the one
the
we was talking
Digger,
about? The Digger,
Hellion and Bash.
and
Digger, Hellion and
currently
Bash.
Hellion and Bash. And I
See, and
can
I
tell
didn't even
you,
know all of those other
Well, the
ones.
other ones I don't create. The other ones I edit and I write on. I write with the Mighty
Oh,
Claw with
okay,
Mr.
okay,
Fish,
okay.
and I write Alice, but it was created by him, and then I edit all of his other books as well.
right?
Okay,
So,
fair enough. Fair
like I
enough.
said, writer or
Exactly. Yeah, I'm
co-creator
all
of
over
this.
there, man.
Yeah, and none of these projects, none of these titles are even close to being similar to the next one. We can go from a mystery to an action to Tokyo to
Cyberpunk to like,
cyberpunk, like from one to the next. So that is quite the range for an indie writer, right? Like
Absolutely.
an up and
for any
coming. I
writer,
mean,
really.
yeah, any writer really, right? That's the type of stuff like you'll see from big time creators that can jump from one
Yep.
theme, one project to the next, seemingly effortless. And I know effortless is not true because it does take a lot of effort, but the fact that you make it seem effortless
Thanks,
speaks
man.
Yeah.
volumes of your talent.
I really appreciate that, man. I love writing all sorts of different stuff, and it's partly like I don't want to be put in a box. I want to.
Yeah.
I also like as a dude who wants to work more in comics. One of the reasons why I've been able to work with publishers is because I do write a bunch of stuff, right? Because I've had the opportunity to pitch in the room, and they're like, "Hey, we like this, but we're looking actually more for this." And I go, "Okay, I got a book for that. Hold on." And I go to my
Right.
stack of stuff that I got.
Hold
And I'm
my
like,
beer. I've got one for you.
I can't talk about it yet because the contract's not signed. But I was literally pitching a book. It was really similar to Hellion and Bash. It was another like superhero thing, but it was in somebody else's universe. And they're like, we like it, but we're looking more for a thing with magical girls. And I was like, oh, hold on. And I pull up my pitch for this book I'm working on called MGID, which is the Magical Girl Investigation Department. And I can't talk too much about it because it's not signed yet. But I'm like, I have a book for that. And I handed them. They're like, oh shit, okay, like that's how it goes. Like you can't put yourself in a box, otherwise you're gonna lose opportunities.
Luther has
Absolutely.
a Rolodex instead of business cards. It's pitches. You'd be like, okay, here, I got
Dude,
this one.
it's how it goes. I mean, literally. So I remember back when I first started, like even like reading comics, other than like Marvel or DC. Kirkman was on a podcast and he was talking about how when he pitches something to someone, he doesn't like have a book in mind. He goes to the artist he wants to work with and he goes, "Hey, what do you want to draw?" And to maximize his
Ooh.
chance of getting them to say yes, he then writes a list of pitches that matches what they want to draw.
I
And I
like
was like,
that.
oh, I got to do that. So that's what I do, except for I'm an insane person. So when I get a pitch, I also write 2 or 3 scripts. I write like the Bible for the universe. The first time I ever got to work with a pro artist, his name was Oleg Akunev. Love him. He's done stuff for Aftershock and Marvel and, big pro. And I had pitched him a book and he was like, listen, no one's ever heard of you. I'll take a look at your stuff. And then he read the Bible for the book and he goes, do you do this every time? What if I would have picked that one? And I sent him the Bible for the other book and he was like, Okay, you know what you're doing. Okay, and so since he said that, that's what I do every time. I like
I
forget.
like that.
I just gotta write stuff.
No, I like that a lot. Then I too want to eventually write more properties of just my zombie book that I've written. So I like that idea of just literally having. If you're trying to go different, like another artist, be like, let's see what kind of stuff they like to draw. You tell
Yeah.
me, I can make something out of that. Like
That's how it goes, man.
it is, and it's really interesting. And I said this to you before we got on the air. End of year, I was very impressed
Thanks,
with the
man.
range, because for me, like, and it's part of a lot of the fact that a lot of writers get put in a box even if they don't want to be.
Right.
So to be able to tell these different stories that have clearly different source audience, as well as storytelling methods, like for instance, like in Tokyo Fire, I felt like there was a lot left to be explored in the world, where it wasn't really a lot told. It just kind of teased you as what is on the surface, and there's
Right.
so much more below. Where in Hellion and Bash, I felt like I knew the world, and it felt like you had done 10 issues of world building in one book. And for a superhero book, that's something that you're gonna need, because as we were talking before, we all know what superheroes are.
Right.
You know what I mean? To explain how we got this dark vigilante billionaire, you should just be able to see him and go, I know what that is.
Right, I don't want to be telling 200 issues of this guy. So you go, okay, now let's Gargoyle. He's not even the main character. Like I don't want
Right.
to do that. Nobody wants that, and also no one's gonna give an indie writer an indie book the chance on that, right?
Exactly.
I gotta throw you in as fast as possible. You know, the worst advice I ever got, specifically, it was for Tokyo Fire. I was pitching it around to publishers a few years ago, and they said, well, you don't explain anything about the world in the first issue. I feel like I got thrown in right away. And I was like, would you have read it if I put a 14-page explainer up front? And the guy said, like, no, that would be awful, but I need you to do that. I need you to rewrite it if you want us to publish it. And so obviously it wasn't published by them, and it sold really, really well when I took it to crowdfunding. And it was the first time I had ever seen a bad note. I get a lot of good notes from like editors and publishers, but that one I was like, okay, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to go with this. And the best compliments I got on it was like, oh, I feel like I was thrown right in the action. I get it. Yeah. Tokyo Fire's happening. I don't know what the hell Lower Tokyo is, but it seems fun. And like, that's what you got to do, you know?
And I think it's because of the type of story it was. Like I said, for a superhero one, you just throw them right in and you kind of just figure it out as you go. But with something like that, you purposely leave out details, because it's like, what is that? I want to know. I have to pick up this issue because of that, you know, and it shows the you get it, man. You just get it. Like,
me as a reader, because like you two are, you know, published writers, right? But me as a reader, I can see the skill of like hooking the readers in like two different ways, right? Because both stories are completely different, right? But as I'm going through Tokyo Fire, it's like comes of what the world is, right? The fact that you have like upper and lower Tokyo, that means immediately like this is some dystopian story where classes are not just divided by money or by jobs or whatever, but they actually live in different levels in the same city, right? And then they start, you know, you don't actually say what's going on, like you say, and I love that, but you have like a quick drive-by of a protest, right? And in the signs, you can see what are they protesting about, like human rights, civil rights, workers' rights, right? And it's how, you know, like just analyzing it a little bit, right? You can see that this has gone for a while, because you have criminal gangs that are doing now, like getting into activity to like kind of like destabilize the system, like fight against back the system, whether they know they're doing it, you know, consciously or not, is happening, right? So I immediately, you know, you can see like the graffiti on the buildings of like, you know, F the system, or like it's there.
Yeah,
that's just, you know, it's not like explicitly written where you'll have a page where it's like, in this world society devolved. No,
Yeah.
No, you don't have to read it. You can see it if you just pay attention, right? And then in Hellion and Bash, there's certain moments there where if you just pay attention, you can see like what the story is trying to
Right.
tell you, right? Like you see the a Bash, right? You don't know who he is, but then eventually you see that he's breaking and entering and probably stealing something. But if you go back when chaos ensued, he
Yeah,
was
he's just
grinning.
watching it happen. Like,
But
this is
then you see
perfect, right? Like,
exactly, he was like a fish in a tank. But then you see Gargoyle, who's supposed to be a hero, grinning during the fight scene with the pterodactyl. So like who's supposed to be the good guy and the bad guys have the same grin, this evil grin uh, on 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 both sides of the situation. Like, oh, heroes are here to save the day. But Gargoyle has this like, Machiavellic, um, I don't know, feeling
yeah,
about him,
yeah,
right?
exactly. The whole point of him, down to the lettering that we use for him, is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. That was the note I gave to both letterers, both Mike Stock and Fishley. Love those dudes. I was like, hey, can you make people feel uneasy when he pops on the screen? They're like, oh yeah, sure,
That's
we can do
awesome.
that. And Fish literally, like, he lettered it by hand, like he did the normal lettering, and then he went back over each letter by hand just a little bit off, so it makes you like stare at it, going, "What the heck is this?" It was really
Yeah.
rad.
No, I like that, and that's we talked about this before on the show, how important lettering is that a lot of regular, or let's say casual fans just don't really get, and how important it really is, because in the phrase we use is really good lettering, you don't notice it at all,
That's
but
right.
bad lettering is so clear.
Yeah,
You can
bad lettering
tell
will
that.
ruin a book. Good lettering just blends in. And
Yep.
I'm a huge proponent for that. I love letterers. They make the book, in my opinion. And it's
Yeah.
so important to work with ones that are professional. It's the one thing, like, I get asked a lot, and I don't know why. Like, I'm not that much higher of the echelons when it comes to indie books, but I get asked a lot of questions. And the number one thing that I tell people is, like, if you want your book to look professional, get a professional letterer, because it will level up your book leaps and bounds. Because if you're doing it yourself and you've never lettered before, that's all awesome and you should learn, but people are going to tell. They can see that
Yeah.
you did it.
No, and I tell the story about my book. What was it? I think it was 3 years ago now. We had the entire ash can done. We were ready to go. I brought it to MegaCon. It was lettered by the interior artist. And
Okay.
when I brought it to people and I showed it, they were all like, "Wow, this art's really good. I like where the story's going." But and I'm like, "Oh God,
Oh
what?"
no.
And they're like, the lettering it's horrible. Like I literally had someone say like, this lettering is absolute trash, and
Oh,
I was
that
like,
sucks, man. That's
and,
rough.
not for nothing, but I almost gave up at that point. I was like, all right, well that's
Oh,
it. There's
I can't get it redone, but
apparently this is the way it ends. But then I got very lucky. My good friend John from Encase Comics, he actually hooked me up with the letterer he's working with on his book, and I say it all the time, and Tyrone literally took my book to the absolute next level, and it makes just such a difference. And I didn't really notice it too much when I first went with it. I was like, oh, this is fine, this is good, it's good. And then when I see Tyrone's work, I'm like, oh no,
yeah.
it wasn't.
You
All
can
right,
you can tell
this
the
makes
difference,
sense.
man. And it's one of the so Sky Hawkins is my co-creator on Tokyo Fire. She's awesome, and she's actually a really good letterer too. But I wanted her to be able to focus, and she had never had the opportunity to hire a letterer on a project. So when she came on board and we were co-creating Tokyo Fire, I was like, let me hire a letterer for this, so you can just focus and do all of the artwork. She also colored it, and she had a blast with that. And then, but on the Digger, Sam Goodlin is my co-creator on that one, and he's also a professional letterer. So like he gets a lot of letterer work, and he was like, don't let anybody else letter my book. The reason why I learned how to letter is because I'm lettering this book. And I was like, but you don't speak English. And he's like, I'll learn. And
I got this.
And like, obviously jokes aside, English is a second language, but like he very, very, very fluent. So like, but he killed it on that. And to the point where I was like, hey, I was gonna hire a letterer, and he was like, are you sure? Because it looks good. And we had sent it to the publisher as the test. I was like, well, I like it. Let's see what the publisher thinks. The publisher was like, it's good to go. Do we want to print this one right now? And I was like, oh, stands to reason, the same as a good letterer then. If the publisher says yes, then we're good.
Like exactly. And and speaking of the Digger, the artwork is so visceral. Like it talk about being uncomfortable reading it, like, but in a good way,
Mm.
like, because it was creepy and like I felt like, you know, because it built up to that big reveal at the end, like we all kind of saw coming,
You
but
should
like
know.
to see
You should
it
know, but
was just
you
like,
gotta see it. Yeah.
oh,
And that
like,
was fun because I get to
so
pitch
good.
a book every week. Well, now I don't because I got a publisher for it. But before I was pitching, I was like, I get to walk into offices or get on calls and be like, "Hey, what if Indiana Jones hunted short round?" And they go, "Excuse me, what are you saying to me? Like, what is this?" And then I send them the book, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's what he's talking about. This guy's weird." Okay, but that was the cool thing about Invader Comics is they heard that and they were like, "We want in," and then they got the book, and they were like, "This is awesome."
That's all I would need too. Like, I'm sorry, like, like the second you said that, like, I'm sorry, what? Like, because I didn't catch that. But now that you say it,
now,
you
can't unsee it, right? You see the
it's
kid,
like,
he's got
oh
the
my
hat,
God,
you got an archaeologist, like,
oh crap.
that's 100% what it
sir.
is, you know?
Well, it takes a real special person to slide one by me. And you slid, and that was right. That was perfect. Well,
and that one, you know, we were talking about it earlier when it comes to like the me pitching to writers. That was one. So I really wanted to work with Sam. I had been following his career. He's done a ton of indie books out of Russia and a lot of professional stuff over there, but he hadn't made it over to the States yet. And I had been following him like real close. And I had I got a hold of his email and I started pitching him books. And he agreed to work with me. Like, he liked my portfolio, but he was like, "Your pitches suck. I don't want to do any of these." And I was like, "Okay, like, but like you said you wanted to draw this." He's like, "I changed my mind. I don't want to draw any of these. This sucks." And I was like, "Okay, what are you in the mood to draw for? I will write you anything." And he said, "What do you know about Mesoamerica?" And I said, "Everything." I knew nothing, but I was like, "But I can learn." Like, I lied.
I can research.
Exactly. I was like, "I know everything," and I got like 10 pitches for you. And he was like, "Perfect. Can you have them to me by Monday?" I said, "Bet." I did not sleep for 4 days, and I learned everything I could. I called several museums. I talked to a couple people I know who are studying at college that exact topic, and I came back to him with 7 pitches, and he picked the digger. And it's like our take on going, "Hey, when people say it belongs in a museum, that's actually bad. That's white people saying it belongs in our museums. What if we approached it from that point of view?" Because like, I'm a white dude. If I'm going to be telling a story in Mesoamerica, I wanna do it from that angle. That's the only way I think it's okay for me to go in there. And so we made Indiana Jones the bad guy, because he is, right? Like, I love Indiana Jones. I love those movies. But if you look at it through a realistic lens, he's the bad guy.
You know something? I was having this exact conversation with my wife yesterday. We're doing like this challenge on Instagram, like where every day you have to like post a book related to a certain theme, right? And I think yesterday was the theme was Hero's Journey, right? And she posted a book of a cover with Indiana Jones. And I was teasing her. I was like, "Is Indiana Jones a hero? I mean, he's just going to other people's countries and stealing their relics and their history. Is he a hero? I don't know. I don't think so." And, you know, she didn't like that because she's a huge fan of Indiana Jones.
I am too. Right. No.
He's flipping me right now, so you know.
No, listen, I'm a huge fan of Indiana Jones, but after Big Bang Theory, I have realized not only is he a villain, but he doesn't have any impact on the story whatsoever. He's just there to be a white guy that looks good. Like, come on,
exactly.
Let's be honest here. That's all he is there for.
And he's fun, and I love it, and he is roguish. But if the fun of writing comic books, like we talked about before, is anything can be comics, right? That's one of the magical things about it. I don't have to worry about casting. I don't have to worry about special effects. It's like I can tell any story, and no one's going to give me Indiana Jones and let me tell that story. But I can tell this story because it's decidedly not Indiana Jones. So I can use the power of me being indie and being a nobody, because I can't get the Indiana Jones license from Marvel. You know, I can go and do my own version of that and do something that they'll never do, because they would never do that to Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones is worth too much money. It's the same thing as with Hellion and Bash, where I can make Gargoyle, the obvious Batman analog, a terrible, awful person where he's literally called the Monster in the first issue, because they would never let me do that with Batman, nor would I want to. But I can give you a book that you can't get anywhere else and use my powers of being a nobody to my advantage, you know?
No, I really that's a great way to look at it too. I never even thought of it like that, because I mean, I'm doing a kind of similar thing with the zombie side, where it's like I'm gonna take it to places where most people wouldn't dare, because they're not gonna make Rick the evil person.
Right.
They're not gonna make my main character he is gonna, for the first half of the story, people are gonna be like, is he the hero? I don't think I think he's the bad guy in this story. Like, he's killing everybody for no reason. Like, you know,
Are we the baddies? Like, that's
right. But why do I like him so much? Because he's a relatable character, and that's one thing I think indie does so well is relatable characters more so than Marvel and DC.
I wrote a review for this book from Boom Studios called Vicarious, right? And on my final thoughts on the issue, I was saying that there's so much going on in the story that you tend to forget who is on the right and who's on the wrong, right? And the fact that the writer was able, and I was telling you about earlier, it's the Vicarious book,
I bought
right?
a bunch.
So, oh man, you're gonna love it. The fact that Ryan Parrott, the writer, was able to write a world where, you know, evil versus goodness is irrelevant. It just says that everybody's stories matter, everybody's side of the story, or everybody's story matter, right? Like, you can tell a story about zombies where your leading character might meet, you know, on that gray area when it comes to morals, right? Or it could be just a plain villain. But you're reading the story, you might find yourself rooting for the villain. You never know. It's depending how well you can craft that story, right? And me as a reader, as a fan, if it's a good story, it don't matter if it's a bad guy, a good guy, a morally gray guy. If it's a good story, it's a good story.
That's the best part of something like Game of Thrones, right? Where it's like you have 40 characters who are all against each other. They're all vying for the same thing. They're all each other's the antagonists. But we love watching all of them because you're telling a good story and you have characters who I root for even when they are the bad guy. And especially what's really fun about that is when you care about everybody and then they go head to head and you're like, I don't know who to root for here. And I'm like, that's the best part. And that's the types of stories that I love telling. I love asking the question of, okay, you thought this was the hero, but maybe I meant protagonist. Maybe I meant that this is the main character, not necessarily the hero, because those words are different.
They're not the same thing. They're not the same
thing. Exactly. And
wait, what?
The fun.
Hold on.
I've had some really nice people pop into my comments being like, why does it seem like the thief is the main guy in your book? Isn't it like Batman and Robin? And I was like, it's decidedly not Batman and Robin. Like, Batman is the bad guy. Catwoman is the good guy. You know, like that's what it is. And like, that's half the fun is making you question like, okay, what is a superhero? Who is the hero? Who is the villain? And we all have stories to tell about us. And it's not a complete black or white, good or evil. There's gray areas across the board. And that's the main thing that I do with it, because really, like, the way that I pitch myself to publishers is like, all of my stories are like, hey, what if I trick people into eating their vegetables and I put it in like that package of like superheroes, Indiana Jones, manga, and cyberpunk. But like Tokyo Fire secretly it's like class warfare, right? It's about revolutions. It's about unions. But like, that's, you wouldn't know that necessarily. You got these two goobers who are robbing stuff and they get in over their head and it's a fun time. But, you know, like...
Goobers is the right word. Goobers is the right word. I'm sorry. I was trying to find, because I made some notes, so I didn't forget. I was trying to find words to describe, you know, the characters. And Thibault, that's how you say his name. Thibault, like, he was reckless. But even more so than being reckless, he's a goober.
He's a goofball, and like his only skill in that book, like he's the face, he's the talker. So like whenever like they're getting chased or they're in a fight, it's like the only thing I can do here is talk and hope somebody gets me out of it. That's the only thing I can do. So like my main thing that I do in all of my books, and you'll see it, it's like not necessarily a formula, but I always open with the characters I want you to see the most doing what they're best at. Right. So when you open up the digger, the Indiana Jones character, the titular digger, like he is digging, right? Like he is stealing treasure. In Tokyo Fire, you see Tib talking and Ren is driving, because those are the two things that they're good at. And in Hellion and Bash is robbing the city blind. That's the whole thing. And you see them in their element. So when I take them out of that, you can see that they're fish out of water. or when they're in other situations, you know what they can and cannot get themselves out of. So you're already in that mindset because you've never met any of these characters. You don't know Tokyo Fire from a hole in the ground, and you've definitely never heard of T.S. Luther. So I want you to be able to get into these stories as quick as possible so you forget that it's not an Image book, that it's not at Boom Studios, that I don't have an IDW contract. You're just reading a fun story. And that's my goal for all of my indie books, and now less indie. I don't know what to call them because I got publishers for these books now. But like, it's still a small publisher. No offense to Professional Entropy. I know you write me checks, but like, no one's heard of Professional Entropy either. Invader Comics is a little bit bigger. People have heard of Invader Comics, but they're not the same as Boom, right? So
You're gonna be,
it's nice, but
we actually talked about this. I think that like what needs to happen is they need to do kind of like reclassification of indie and all of the stuff like not only indie but also the genres. Like we got modern that starts in the freaking is almost as old as me, which is definitely vintage. But
I've been waiting for somebody to come up with a new era, and we can all just
no one can think of a name.
Yeah,
and we're all just like, we'll just keep it modern. But like when you talk about indie, for me, everything that is not Marvel, DC, and Image are indie. Boom is close, but Boom and IDW, I feel, are still definitely independent publishers that work with the big three.
I mean, but IDW is printing money with every single last Ronin thing that they do, and Boom Studios has like $1 million just in Tiny and alone, and then plus Power Rangers, right? Like they have their big ticket items, but I do get what you're saying. Like definitely, like when it comes to like money on the board, they're definitely a little bit lower than like Image or where does Dark Horse fit into it? Because Dark Horse has been the Dark Horse forever. People forget about Dark Horse, but yet they're the only ones who are printing manga, and they're printing money with Berserk every month. I have all of the hardcovers because where else are you gonna get it? So Dark Horse has the cachet, right? But I think people forget because Hellboy isn't necessarily on the shelves every month that they're still huge,
So I think it's not even about the money aspect for me. Why I only have the big three, it's more of brand recognition to non-comic people.
That's fair. Like when I've mentioned
Image,
stuff like that, they don't know what I'm talking about.
You see Spawn, Spawn. Like you see Marvel or DC characters, they're Marvel or DC. Where even though like Boom, I think Boom is very close to being that next one.
Erica Slaughter is on everything, man. Like she's gonna be a mascot,
And when the thing that it hurt Boom is that they announced things too soon to make sure that the books got like purchased a lot of.
Yeah.
Like for instance, when you look at like Berserker, like the one with Keanu Reeves, that is going to be a movie and an animated series. They announced that a second at release, and now we're sitting here years later with no information. Then you have something's killing the children. That
it was auctioned like early on, right before it caught on fire, and there hasn't been any announcements.
If I said Keanu Reeves was doing Hellion and Bash #3, I could sell the movie rights to that. They'd sell no script in hand, nothing else. Knowing is Keanu Reeves attached? Yeah, I can sell that. I can make that happen.
Well, and I think that's what helped get the sales up initially for Berserker. But when the story, well, I still think it was really good.
It helps that it's an awesome book, right?
Right. Well, he also, and that's the thing. It's Keanu Reeves and some of the best minds in comics today.
I'll admit that I was a little bit skeptical. I'm a giant Keanu Reeves fan, but when I heard he was doing the book, I was like, okay, how much of a cash grab is this going to be? But he is a giant comic book fan, though. So I was like, I know he would know if the book was bad, but that still doesn't mean that it's going to be good. I pick it up like, oh crap, this is awesome. Okay, I got to buy all of it, and I'm sure everybody else did that too. So I was pleasantly surprised. But I'm one of those people who are disappointed. I'm like, where's the movie? Where's that happening? But is that comic book's fault? Is that Boom's fault? Or is that not Hollywood's fault? I
mean, I don't want to say not at all. I mean, I'm sure there is some, blame on the. I mean, you look at they sold, because the owner, the guy who created Boom, is not the head of Boom anymore.
Right.
And I think that also kind of did some damage. But then I'm telling you, and I think we can all agree, when something killing the children, that first trailer drops from a Netflix show, It is going to break the internet.
I don't know if you can see on my back wall. You can see I have the House of Slaughter black bandana back there.
Yes.
Yes.
Giant fan, and so is my wife. Like, we're huge fans in the house, and so excited for the adaptation. But I like, as much as I'm excited, I'm way more excited for somewhat connected, just same like genre, Witches from Scott Snyder. Do you guys remember that one?
Yes.
I'm a giant fan of Witches. Love that book so much. They've been talking about an adaptation of that to go animated for years, so much so that he was focused on that instead of doing volume 2. And so when you talk about like, oh, we've had to wait a long time for Berserk, or we've had to wait a long time for, something that's killing the children. Like, I've been waiting a decade for Witches. So I'll wait another year for something that's killing the children. It's fine.
But let's be honest. You're a different breed. And I mean that. I hope it's clear to everyone who might be listening or watching later. I mean that as the most sincerest of compliments of all time. But like, not everyone has our attention span and our ability to wait. So you had all these people that fought in heavy to Berserker, and now are like,
where's the movie? That's completely fair, because I talked about Witches and people are like, you mean that one Snyder book he did before he did all the 40
Course of Owls, Batman
books he's done at DC, like that one? That's what you're excited about? And but we've talked about, my patience is insane. I like to pretend like I'm some mastermind playing 4D chess. It's really just ADHD, right? I'm just hyper focused. I'm just sitting here. I can't get out of the bubble. I got hyper fixated on comic books in 1997, and I haven't gone back. So that's all it is. It's a problem with my brain rather than a superpower. But
I disagree. I think it is a superpower that people label a problem with the brain.
I mean, it depends how you look at it.
I try to use my powers for good. With great power comes great responsibility, or a great amount of indie comic books. One of those,
or a Rolodex full of Bibles for 100,000 comic book ideas. And again, I hope everyone understands. I will admit a little bit of a hint of jealousy. I only have one universe I'm working in right now with ideas for more, but you actually have taken those ideas and been like, all right, here we go. Bible, here's the whole thing. Everything I need for that. Let's put that on the shelf. I got another one. Here's another Bible. Put that on the shelf.
I mean, it helps that I don't sleep for sure. And the other thing too is as a comic book creator, I also listen. You got kids, right? You don't sleep either. Don't act like you caught a nap earlier because you're like, this is the first time I get to sleep in a whole year, so I'm going to take this 7-minute nap. They keep you up.
7 minutes.
But that's how it goes. You got to utilize that time. And as a comic book writer, the thing that I tell new writers is nobody wants you. Nobody wants you to do this. They're going to actively work against you. And the biggest thing you're going to deal with isn't rejection. It's apathy. No one gives a crap. So it's a little bit like throwing spaghetti at I always say it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, but nobody ordered pasta and everybody has celiacs, right? They're not interested and they're annoyed that you're doing it. But if I only had one idea, if I had Hellion and Bash, I wouldn't be making comic books. You have to keep the churn going. You got to be making series because no one's going to pay you to make comic books if you're not already making comic books. Right. And if you only have one idea, if you're only working in one universe, that's awesome if people buy into that universe. But the second they don't, you're screwed, right? Hellion and Bash is awesome, and I love it. And I would love to tell all the different superheroes in that universe. I have so many cool stories to tell. But unless
and there's a lot of superheroes,
there are, right?
In that universe.
Because that's what you need. You get a fully fleshed out universe, and I have a lot of scripts for it. But if Professional Entropy doesn't see that success, I might not get a full run of Hellion and Bash, let alone all the spin-offs I want to tell, right?
Right.
And, I'm in meetings with them, and if it goes well, they're like, we want to do this spin-off, and do you have an idea for this character? And we'd love if you did this. But that's all dreams, right? It's Fugazi, right? It's hypothetical on top of a hypothetical. So I have to keep pitching to other publishers, right? Invader didn't want Tokyo Fire. I had actually pitched Tokyo Fire to them originally. They were super nice about it, but they were like, we already have a cyberpunk book. We don't really want that right now. So I self-published that. But Professional Entropy didn't. So that found a home there. The Digger didn't work for Professional Entropy, but it worked for Invader. And I have that MGID, that Magical Girl book that didn't work for either one of those. It's going to a different publisher. So in order to work in this industry, you have to have 100 ideas. You have to have 1 million artists that want to work with you because you're not crazy, or at least you're the right type of crazy and you're not offensive. That's the thing I gotta tell you is like just be cool to work with.
Fair.
What was
Yeah,
that?
no.
What'd you say?
Okay.
Definitely.
So I wanna
Yeah,
reel
yeah,
it back
man, sorry.
into like the whole no. I want to reel it back into like
Sure.
Hellion and Bash, right? Because that's your current. You have an open campaign
Yeah,
right
live
now,
on
right?
Kickstarter, issue
For
2.
issue number
Yeah.
2. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
Hellion
ahead.
and Bash issue
Go
number
ahead,
2
Gal.
live on Kickstarter right now. Please go check it out. Professional Entropy backed this one. Like I have a publisher involved. It'd be really helpful if you go and check it out. If you're on TikTok, my YouTube, anything like that, you can go to professionalentropy.com or Kickstarter. Type in Hellion and Bash issue 2. Who protects the sidekick from the superhero? When the superheroes don't step up, when this kid's being abused, the supervillains have to, and they find themselves on the run from the entire superhero community. If you like books like Invincible, The Victories, The Boys, Batman and Robin, this is the book for you. It's going to ask questions that you can't do in mainstream comics. It's going to have a lot of action that you can't see because they're not going to put Batman through that kind of thing. So please go and check out Hellion and Bash, because who knows if people will let me write another comic book, you know? Like I can write these all day, but someone's got to sign the check to those artists. Marcus Pedro is the artist on it. He's amazing. He's a really, really good indie artist out of Brazil. He was doing all these amazing comic books on Funktune, which is like this Portuguese language, like webtoon or tapas. And he took a big chance at doing an American book with me. So if you don't want to see me cry and you want to see Marcus get paid, go and check out Hellion and Bash. Also, I'm a dad. If I can guilt you into anything, if you don't buy the book, how do I feed my kids? You know, like
let me say something about issue 1, right? Because we read it, so we could be ready for this, right? I don't know, and this is what like just one page that I want to highlight really quick. I'm not sure if this was Marcos Pedro, the artist, or Fish Lee, the letterer, but there's one page, and I thought this was clever. It could be simple. I'm simple-minded sometimes, but Bash is on the elevator, and it's one of those see-through elevators where you can see outside, right? And outside, there's this whole fight going on between this monster and the superheroes. And he's looking outside and just looking back at the door of the elevator. And the right side of the page, you see the levels as he's going up, right? Like 15, 16, right? I thought that was really, really clever, right? You don't have to write, you don't have to show that he's going up. You just show the background, the different altitude of the fight and the buildings in the background, and then just a circle with the number of the level as he's passing by. I thought that was so like perfectly executed, right? Storytelling without actually the telling part. You see it, and automatically your brain like pieces together. It's like, oh, he's going up, shit's going on in the back. He's going to the penthouse, right? I thought that was so well done.
Thank you, man.
That I don't know if you wrote it to be like that.
I definitely wrote it to be like that, but Marcus's execution on that was like a big part of it, right? Like that. One of the reasons why I love working with Marcus is like he gets it. Like everything that I write on the page, like he's going to execute it 10 times better than I even put it on there. Full credit to him. But like he understands it, and it's if anyone's ever worked with anybody who speaks a different language, it's really cool because the way that we communicate with each other, we have right. Like you have a different level of communication that goes past just what you can write down. And when you start to get in sync, you get really cool pages like that. And that was fully me going, hey, it'd be cool if they're going up the elevator and we see the action in the background. Marcus going, I got it. And like fully executing that perfectly. And, you know, credit to Fish too. He did all of the SFX on that page. So like the little cherry on top is that ding when he gets to the end. Like that was all Fish. Like, it needs this one little note, you know, like, but
that's the beauty about the contribution from a letterer, right? Like, I don't know if you actually told him, it's like, hey, I need the ding, right? But just adding it there, right? That onomatopoeia, like, gives it that third dimensional into the reading experience, right? Because you read that and you hear it in your mind. Oh, the ding of the elevator, he made it. You know that.
It
sound,
gave it a lot of depth. Like like that one, like that's one thing when you're trying to portray things like that on a flat piece of paper. You have to think outside the box to give it that feeling of realism. Even if you're in a fantastical world, it's still a world that would exist in that universe, so you kind of it can't just be stickmen. I mean, I'm sure there are some comics that are just stickmen, but it's not going to be a story like we're trying to tell,
right?
Without having that third dimensional look to it. And I when you're talking about working with an artist my artist is from Canada, and like he came down for MegaCon, and there were times where we were talking
French Canadian.
Dude,
You forget to say that he's
when I
French
tell
Canadian,
you,
so his first language is
this
French.
man was talking to me in French, forgot that I was not understanding, and somehow I still knew what he was saying. Because I answered back, and he was like, "Do you speak any French?" I'm like, not even a freaking. I know "Voulez-vous coucher avec moi," and that's from Moulin Rouge.
Yeah,
That's
but he's
the
got
only
like the
reason why I know
Québécois
that.
like going on, right? Like it's not even just like pure French, right? Like it's its own dialect. But like when you're on the same page, literally and figuratively, and when you're just like syncing up on creating something, that's one of the reasons why even when I pitch a book that I'm like, hey, this is kind of my vision, it becomes ours. I no longer have full ownership over it. Like Marcus,
Okay.
I hire Marcus. I still have I own Hellion and Bash along with pieces that Professional Entropy has. But one of the things when I was telling him about the story, I was like, I want to make it yours too, because I never want to work on just my project, because I want him to be invested, and he has no reason to be invested other than getting paid if it's not partly his story. So like a lot of the designs that go into the book are all Marcus. Like I'll go, hey, I want a giant green pterodactyl guy. And like everything else that comes along with that is him. So a lot of the designs that go into the book are all Marcus. A lot of the action sequences, I have a general outline for what they do. I do panel to panel scripting, but he brings it to life in a way that I never could. And it's so important to me that he gets the stuff in there. Like he'll come to me with an idea going, hey, what about this? And we'll change stuff in the script as long as it works, because when you're a good creative partner, it's about making sure everyone is enjoying themselves in the book. Because I could write a book that's just wholly me, and it's going to be boring as hell, and everyone's going to be so sad reading it, and you'd be like, man, I wish this guy had some other input, because this guy stinks. So
I don't know. I think you're pretty entertaining all on your lonesome, but that's just me.
Very, very, very. I was just telling Luther earlier, I never know him not hype. Like every time I see him on a video, on a live stream, on an interview, this man is always at 100
You didn't see
miles.
all the Coca-Cola I chugged outside the room. I was like, so like, here's the Coca-Cola, here's the Red Bull. I need a cup of coffee and a Monster real quick. I got to be on this podcast. Because, but you got to remember, too,
but it makes sense. It makes sense that like you two guys have something in common, that not like you have to be passionate and you have to love, and believe in what you're doing. But you two have like this energy and this like relentlessness about your work, right? And you kind of have to be crazy in that way, because like you say all the time, people don't care. Like you have to make them care. You have to create the market for this product that you have. Right? Nobody asked for this. Nobody is begging for this. Nobody was out there wondering if there could be a story about X, Y, and Z. You're making it. You have to create the market, and it takes kind of like that personality to like engage people, to like not give up. Props to you guys, because putting yourself out there for knowingly that the no is probably going to be
the no is the best
the
answer
outcome,
you can get,
and you still do it.
I think I was lucky that I had my big like no slap in the face right at the very beginning, like because like they were like, there are things I like, but this is bad. And I'm like, okay. So after I came back to it and was like, oh, maybe I should keep doing this, my brain was like, all I have to fix is that I need a letterer. Hold on. I can still do this. Like, and I feel like, and what you said was so poignant and really kind of hit me that no one cares, and you have to make them care. And that's not like a shot at people. That's just how the world works. Unless you have some reason to be invested in something, especially a new property, it doesn't matter how good it is if you can't get someone to care about it.
1000%. And I'm never offended. I get a lot of no's and I get a lot of apathy. And like one of the annoying things that I do, I'm sure there's a million pros who hate me because I'm in their inbox all the time. But I'm like, hey, will you check this out? Will you read it? Will you give it a chance to, just look at it? And I want you to know, if you ever got into that, if anyone's watching, I hate it too. I hate myself that I got to do it. I'm embarrassed. I'm anxious. I'm so sorry I'm bothering you. And as much as I lie about it, I know I'm bothering you. I'm completely aware of what I'm doing. But you have to do it if you want to make it in the industry. You got to put yourself out there and be completely fine with bothering people. You have to shill. You have to want to be a sellout and work with companies because that's how you make a career out of it. I tend to get up on a little bit of a high horse when I'm on TikTok sometimes because I'll see people being like, well, I don't want to work with them. I want to be the next Marvel. And I'm like, that's super cool. Prove me wrong. But I don't think that's going to happen, right? Like that's an institution that you're saying you want to usurp, that no one's ever done that, right? Even when you look at Image, that was made from people who left Marvel and DC,
Right. That had a name at Marvel before they stepped out the door.
Nobody wants a new guy. Like, how many times do people check out your book or my book and they're like, well, is Spider-Man in it? Like, what do you mean? Like, if he's not, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. Like, what is this? Oh, that's cute.
Hey, you said this was a Batman and Robin story.
Where is Batman?
And that's the thing, right? And so, like, you
Where is
hope
Batman?
Dude, that was pretty good.
Thank you.
So, like, you gotta hope that you can convince them, and someone will take a chance. So you have to take as many chances as you can, and that means bothering people, pitching them. And the biggest thing I stress to people jumping in is you gotta make it knowing, and you can be proven wrong, but knowing nobody is going to read it. Like it's got to be worth it to you to just try, because the first book I made, and like you talk about the letter, the first book I ever made, it was called Growing Up. No one read it. I put it on Comixology because I didn't know how to pitch a book at the time. I don't think it's ever gotten any downloads. A few of my friends bought it from Amazon because I think that it was like on the drop shipping thing. You could buy it there and they'd print a copy for you. But other than that, no one had seen this anthology I made, but it was enough to make me go, okay, I can do this. What if I got the next one in front of people, right? And you don't have to worry about the hate. No one's going to care enough to hate on it. No one shits on Hellion and Bash. I never get mean comments about Hellion and Bash because I don't get comments about Hellion and Bash. You know what I mean? Like no one's talking about it to hate on it. I see so many people afraid to go out there because they're like, what if people think it sucks? And I was like, that'd be wonderful if more people thought Hellion and Bash sucked. I would love if there was a bunch of people talking about how bad my book was, because then a bunch of people would be talking about it. But like, you
not only that, but I feel like no matter what, unless it's like
no such thing as bad press, right? Like,
this is really bad. Just because you have those people who are saying it's bad are literally gonna like. There's gonna be so many behind you, like, wait a minute, no, I like it, and you suck for saying it's bad. Like even if they don't believe it, just because people
love to disagree.
I have noticed that a lot of people now are really trying to get behind the smaller, the better creator because they feel kind of left out in a lot of the properties that are in the big companies. And for people like us, when we write stories, we make it relatable but in a fantastical world. So these people will see these characters and feel something for them, but they don't have to know them. Right. You know what I mean? Like they could just get invested in the story and live in it. And I think that's something that a lot of the, like Marvel, DC, Image, they don't really do as much anymore because it's just about, let me do another Spider-Man run to make some money. Let me do another Batman run to make some money. Let me do this and that. It's all about money. It's not about telling the best story.
It's about that status quo that they have to protect is the thing, right? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Indie books.
Oh, it's okay.
Are just fresh, and it's about the story, right? Like like the stories have to be good because they don't depend on an IP, an established IP. They don't depend on an established character. They don't depend on an established big name for the writer, for the artist, right? Like DC or Marvel can sell you a book, an entire run based on a writer, based on the artist, right? And indie comics don't have that luxury. They have to be good, right?
Yeah.
The stories have to be good. The characters have to be good, right?
You can't give
sometimes
them any excuse to tune out. I was just
Yes.
talking to Rod from Irrepressible Comics. If you guys ever get a chance to check out some of his stuff, love that dude. And he was talking to me about what he has to do to make the book possible. And a lot of what I do is like, don't give you any excuse to look at my book and go, it's lesser than, right? Like I have a professional artist, I have a professional letterer, like I have a barcode on the front, right? Like anything that you can think of. Like I charge $5, even though I'm losing money on the book. It's like anything to take away that this book is different. It's just like all the other ones. You just haven't heard of it before, right? Like
Right.
I want you to see this on the shelf and go, okay, that's just like that book from Image. It's just like that
Yep.
book from Marvel. Don't give them an excuse to turn away because they will, because we don't have a big name or a big publisher or a character they know. You have to give it the best treatment you can just to be considered the same, right? Just to be neutral with the rest of the stuff on the shelf. And it's a tall ask for people, you know?
And like we talk all the time on the podcast about how if an indie book issue 1 isn't good, there is no issue 2.
No.
Like that's and that is the end of it. Good try. Oh, so sweet. Yes, good job. I'm very proud of you for printing that. But there won't be a 2. You know, so
you can't be a trade waiter either when it comes to indie books, which sucks because like I love trades. A good trade is gorgeous on my shelf. I love them. I live in an apartment. Like it's the best way to store stuff. But you can't do that with indie books because if you don't buy issue 1, we might not make it to issue 2, 3, whatever to put together a trade. And like I'm lucky enough to have a publisher for Hellion and Bash. So like when issue 1 was done, we were already working on issue 2, and issue 2 is done, and now we're working on issue 3. And like I'm really, really lucky to be able to do that with such a small book. Most people can't do that. And to even put it out at the cadence that we're putting it out, right? Like I have a monthly book right now. That's unseen in indie comics. That's
amazing.
You know?
That's I want you to take a second and really absorb that. How as someone who has been struggling for the better part of 2 years to get issue 1 out, and I'm still knee deep in issue 2.
Right.
And to have a monthly release schedule, even remotely close to a monthly,
right,
is so impressive. And it speaks to the quality of the book as well as how much people are willing to support you. And that can't be understated. And I, as someone who has a hard time accepting praise and accepting the fact that things might be good, I wanted to take a second to make sure you felt that.
Well, thank
because
you so much, man.
Honestly, it's unbelievably impressive.
I mean, it's an uphill battle, and I know you know because it's a pay-to-play industry. A lot of what you do in like indie comics, especially, is you're just raising money. Can you get enough money to do the next issue? Because it's not like you have a shortage of ideas or shortage of scripts. It's not that. It's about paying everyone that needs to be paid to make the book. And so, like, that's another reason why it's like throwing spaghetti. Like, you got to talk to every publisher possible. Like, I happened to get lucky and meet some dudes who wanted to start making comic books and already had a publishing thing going on and just didn't know anybody making comic books. So I could go, oh, me, like, let's do this. Take your pick of the stack. And then I got really lucky with people really supporting me on Kickstarter for issue 1. It got funded in under an hour. And I thought maybe that would help me go up on like the Kickstarter ranks. And it did not. Kickstarter did not care one bit. They're like, you raised $500. So what? That board game raised $4 million in like 30 seconds. Like that means nothing, but it meant something to this publisher who was like, oh, well, if he can raise, $500 in, under an hour, what can he raise in a month? And maybe we can take a chance on this book. And so I've had people try to troll me because I had like 50 backers, 60 people who are interested. I am so thankful for the handful of people that have taken a chance at reading my books. It means the world to me because it's given me all the chances I never thought I would have. Right? Most people don't get to work with a publisher, let alone 2 to have 3 ongoing series. I never take it for granted. And I worship the ground all of you walk on if you backed it because again, like I joke about it. It does feed my children. It does make sure I have a job. Like it is so cool that you took the chance because you could have went and bought the next Hickman book that was out right now, like coming out at the same time as Ultimate Spider-Man #4. It's like, well, I know what you're gonna pick. And some people picked Hellion and Bash, and that's enough to make me cry over and over again.
No, and listen, you had what 50? I had 40. I still raised more than I needed, and
man.
And it makes. And like you said, like, and I say this all the time, and just like it means so much, like because you can, like you said, go somewhere else and get something maybe cheaper or even more established name.
Right.
But when I say I enjoy reading comics, you know, I very rarely find a comic I don't like because it's a comic book. It's kind of like Star Wars. Even the bad Star Wars, I'm still interested.
It's like bad
like
pizza. It's better
like
than most other
a
stuff.
zombie
Still
movie.
pizza, yeah.
It could be a bad zombie movie. I'm still all in.
Right.
But the quality that you put in and the range of stories, like I the Digger, I was really into, and that last panel, like it was leading there. But like when I saw it, I was like, "Oh yes!" Like it made me think, "Yes, I want to read issue 2." And then with Hellion and Bash, the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, "These are not established characters already." Like it really felt like they belonged on in that superhero pantheon, you know. And the fact that when I read it, I get those those kid feelings. Like I like really like enjoying reading. It's not something that I get from a lot of the Marvel and the DC runs, even when I enjoy them. So kudos to you for being able
Thank
to
you, man.
create something that gets this person who has the I hate everything vibe 9 times out of 10 to really feel like it felt like I was reading something that was important. And like that,
Well,
if
that
I
means a
miss,
ton,
and
man.
to the
Thank
point
you.
where I'm gonna have to go back and read it again because I'm like, I know I missed something.
I have to
Especially,
go back. I have to go back a couple
Yeah.
of times because I was like, wait a minute. This is really good because this was like foreshadow here. Like I have the feeling like you was trying to tell me this, and then I went back
Yep.
and I'm like, there it is. There it is right there. And then I go back to where I was and I'm like, wait a minute. This was
that means
this
a
was
ton, man.
shown.
Thank you.
This was shown.
Yeah.
He knew this. And then I go back and I see it in writing on a little panel. When you know, I'm talking about Bash knowing who Gargoyle is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. I'm like, oh.
Right.
So Gargoyle is bashing and Hellion, but Gargoyle is not in the title because Gargoyle is the bad guy. That's why. Holy shit! So we're gonna
No.
have a caper story where the protagonist is the psychic of a hero, and then the robber. What is going on here? Let me go
and
back.
that, you know, kudos to Professional Entropy and to everyone who's backed it to take a chance, because it doesn't, I don't set up the entire book in issue 1, right? Like it doesn't, they're not already partners in issue 1. It's not like they've been doing this whole thing together. Like I'm telling the beginning of that story, and it begins with this giant kaiju fight, you know, in issue 1. And like they've only just kind of, the first time that they meet is in issue 1. You see them kind of cross paths a little bit as the city's exploding. So Hellion and Bash doesn't even really become Hellion and Bash at first.
Right.
Hopefully it's entertaining enough to get you there. But like I said, like kudos to them for taking a chance, because as I'm pitching the book, I remember the anecdote about Invincible. I don't know if anyone knows the story of that, but when he pitched that story, originally the big twist, and I don't want to spoil it if people are jumping on the bandwagon now, but the big twist of that book was supposed to happen in issue 10. And Image came to him, was like, we're going to cancel the book before issue 10. You got to put the twist in there, because otherwise you're just telling, this is just Spider-Man with Superman. Like it's cool, but you need to give them the thing that makes this book the thing. And not to spoil anything, but that's what happens in issue 3. And I was so scared because I didn't put it in issue 1. I was like, are people going to buy this? Are people going to pick up this book? And the publisher was like, don't change anything. Do it the way that you want to tell this story. So props to Professional Entropy for writing me a big check. I really appreciated it. It all went to Marcus, and he really appreciates it. You know, and it went to Mike Stock, the most amazing letterer on the planet. I love working with that dude. Him and Fishley are the best. And I don't really get paid on any of my books. Most of it goes to my creative teams, but it's totally worth it because it lets me make the next book and keep it going. And I love all the praise. I'm trying not to get uncomfortable. I definitely didn't cry through any of the things that you said. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for taking a chance. And I cannot wait to send you issue 2. Like I'm about to finalize everything, and I got to send it to you because you guys said nice things. Hopefully you like issue 2 as well, because if you don't, I'm like, oh no.
Listen, let me tell you, I'm sold, right? And for everybody that's sticking around or just got here, Hellion and Bash, right? The campaign for number 2 is up. You can find it on Kickstarter. You can read about it, or you can go to T.S. Luther anywhere in social media, and you'll hear tons and tons about it. But Hellion and Bash, Hellion is a sidekick. Bash is a robber, a thief, a bad guy, right? Hellion is being mistreated by by the hero, by Gargoyle, as disposable. It's not said, but if you go through issue 1, you'll see that he's being treated like cannon fodder, right? And Bash learns the identity by chance of Gargoyle. So that's what we know walking into issue 2. I mean, if you're not sold in a story like that, I'm sorry.
If that doesn't sell you, I got the final nail in the coffin that should sell pretty much anybody else. If you like superheroes at all, you're gonna like this book. But the reason why I say that is because it's gonna remind you of all the big names that you know, but with the cojones to actually tell a real story. And not for nothing, but you were talking about the cannon fodder. Most of the sidekicks in majority of the big, like Batman, all of them, they are exactly that. But they meet their ends in different ways to tell like a specific story, but they all are abused. Like, if you look at how Robin is treated, how Speedy is treated, how any of these little sidekicks, Aqualad, they get abused until they become the heroes they're supposed to be.
Right.
Now, is that the tough love that they need to reach those heights? Maybe. You can make that argument, but it doesn't change the fact of what's happening. You know, like
you have to suspend that disbelief when you're going to read Batman and Robin. You have to be okay with it because that's not what it's about. It's about Batman and Robin doing awesome stuff, and he needs the sidekick, and they need him, and so you have to pretend like that's okay. But I'm a dad, right? And I love reading books, and I can suspend the disbelief. But if I'm going to tell a story, I bring that into it, and I ask that question. I'm like, hey, is it okay for this sidekick to be doing this? Like, that's a kid out there. Like, that's a child, right? And I wouldn't ever ask that question with Batman and Robin because I love that. People don't love Hellion and Bash. People don't know who the Gargoyle is. People don't know who Hellion is. I'm like, okay, I can ask that question. Like I said before, like, it's a character you've never heard of. I can use my power of unknownness, right? Nobody cares about me or these characters. I would never dare do that with Batman and Robin, but I don't get the chance to. So I can do that with Hellion, right? Like, I can put him in harm's way and make you go, oh, crap, is that okay? You don't have to suspend any disbelief. I want you there going, that seems rough. That kid got blown up. Is that good? Should we be doing that?
What's up with this break? Why is he treating that kid like that? What the hell?
Wait, let's talk about CTE for a minute.
Wait,
right?
Is he the good guy or the bad guy? No.
What do you mean he's okay? He's clearly not okay.
He's fine. And like the thing that I knew, like when I got the final page back, and that's that Gargoyle splash page, he's standing there and he calls him old chum. And like I was watching Batman 66 when I got that final page in, awesome. and it was lettered, and I was like, oh man, this might work. That was the thing. That was the moment I was like, I might be able to sell this to somebody. I could at least sell 4 or 5 copies of this, you know?
Let me tell you this. As I'm reading, I'm making notes, right? And one of the first things I wrote was the narration voice. I wrote insightful, right? And you only get it like in the first couple of pages, right?
Right.
And then in the end, it comes back, and I realize it's Hellion talking about Gargoyle, and I was like, makes sense, right? He said all of these things about everybody else of the different type of villains, right? And then the last type of villain is a monster, and it turns out it's Gargoyle from his perspective, right? And not just his perspective. Like, Gargoyle is a dick. Like, let's be honest. But I was like, oh my god! Like, it felt like I caught on to what it was being put down, like subtly, right? And I was like, oh my god, where's issue 2? Like,
I think you're a lot more perceptive on things like that, but I think a lot of people will stumble into the realization and have to go, like, even if they're not like an avid comic reader, you can pick this up and feel like you're not missing anything, and he leads you right where you need to be to not only enjoy the story but to fiend for issue 2. Because when you end, like, and that's a true gift that I don't think a lot of writers and creators even care about. But the ability to write one issue and give you enough information and hook you enough to get issue 2, it's not easy. And trust me, I'm aware. But you've done a really great job with Hellion and Bash, and
Thanks,
I
man.
cannot wait for issue 2. And as you said, I'm in. This whole run, as long as they let you do it. And let's put it this way: if they stop letting you do it, we're gonna crowdfund it and get it done anyways.
That's the thing.
We will make this happen. I need this story.
They're like, hold on. I picked up issue 1. How many do we get of this? I was like, I don't know. Keep buying them. We'll see. I'm contracted for 4 issues.
See,
like so.
You'll
If I can get, if they sell, they'll give me more. It's only 4 issues because that's what we could afford to get going up front. But if they sell, I can. I've said this before publicly. I have 56 issues outlined. I have like several story arcs. I could do 56. I could go forever, but I have 56 when it comes to like what I would love to tell with this story. I'm going to be lucky to get to that 4th issue, right? So I try not to look too far ahead. I have a plan if I ever get there, but it's like I got to get issue 2 sold before I can ever worry about that. So every time someone asks me like, how many issues is this? Is this ongoing? I'm like, it's ongoing as long as you give me the money to keep it going. If you buy it, we'll call it ongoing, brother. Like, we'll keep it going.
That's the best way to answer that question, because I've got that too. Oh, how many issues you want to do? Shit, I could do at least 100 right now.
If they let me, like that's
how many we'll get to.
Man.
It's another story.
Like you got to be thankful that you get 1 issue. Like the fact that somebody wrote me a check. That I mean, again, I passed it all on to the creative team. The fact that somebody wrote me a check and was like, "Hey, start working on the next issue." That's never happened to me before. Like when it came to the Digger for Invader, me and Sam made that out of pocket. That was all just us going, "Hey, what if we made this issue?" And we pitched it to people. We made 1 issue. Invader was like, we like it. We want all 4 issues. So we started working on the rest of it. But like, we didn't get paid for anything like that. We get paid if it sells. They didn't get, they don't have any money in it either. This was the first time I had ever written a comic book. A publisher bought it and gave me the money up front for the next one. And they did that for issue 2 and 3, and then Tokyo Fire #2 and a few others. And, I don't know if I'll ever get to do that again. So, like, go and check this out, while you can.
I do.
Yeah. We're sold. We're sold.
Man,
it was like,
listen,
it was like
you guys need to go start a publisher and cut me another check, and I'll make all the comic books you guys want.
I'll need their social, their address, and I will take care of it. Sorry. I will have someone. Somehow, some way, it'll get taken care of.
Oh man, but like you guys know, like it's so hard out there. There's so much competition. It's easier than ever to make a comic book, right? And while that means that yes, like I can be a cut above some of the people who are making indie books for the first time, I'm still. I know they're not competing with me, but I'm competing with Tiny and Snyder and DeConnick and all these amazing people that I'm so thankful that the industry doesn't chew up and spit out like they used to, right? Like people aren't treated like Kirby was treated. Like Matt Fraction can write comic books until he dies and he can feed his family, and I get to read Matt Fraction books until he dies, right? Chip Zdarsky can write every single hero there's ever been made, and it'll be amazing, and he's allowed to do that, and I'm so thankful. That does mean there are fewer jobs for new people, though. So that means that we have to carve our way into the industry through our indie books, through these new publishers, through direct marketing and Kickstarter and crowdfunding on Zoop and all those other millions of ways I'll try to get a book made. So, like, I know some people are resistant because they're like, well, I only buy stuff from Image or Marvel or DC. But, like, you got to take a chance if you want to see the industry continue to grow, because you're probably not going to see as many new voices at those places because we're a risk that those companies don't need to take anymore. They can get a book from Snyder. Why would they hire T.S. Luther? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, if you want to see these new voices, you want to check it out, you got to go buy stuff from Mad Cave and Invader and these new publishers that pop up every day, Professional Entropy and, shout out. Like, you got to go check out that stuff. And I know people get nervous because they're like, what if it's drawn with green crayon? It's okay. Tell them thank you. Don't buy issue 2. but take a chance because it might not be. You might pick up Hellion and Bash and go, oh, actually, this is pretty good, which is the best review I get every single time is people surprised. They think it's going to be crappy. They think it's going to be ugly. And again, drawn green crayon and with like a bunch of like stickers on the inside. And it's not. It's a real comic book. You just happen to have never heard of it. So take a chance. Go and buy some comic books from us. We're awesome. Year, I need you to start making comic books too so I can start plugging your stuff. It's not quite fair. We're talking about our books. You haven't drawn or written anything. Come on.
I'll stick to making content and reviews. I love making reviews. You guys keep making comics. I'll keep reviewing them. I'm fine with that.
One day, year, we'll break you. But no, and then all jokes aside, though, when it comes to creating something out of nothing, it's really one of the hardest things you could possibly do. And like you said, it's never been easier to do it, but some people shouldn't do it, and some people that should do it, that shouldn't do it, are like someone like Year who has the knowledge. He could, if he just wanted to, write something and just put it out. But I think there's a lot of voices and a lot of creators that are just kind of on the fence, thinking that they can't do it for reasons X, Y, and Z. And all I'm gonna say is that's bullshit. If you have a story, or if you're an artist or anything that you want to be making comics or following any type of passion, just fucking do it.
Go for it, man.
Like it can't be made, it can't be sold, it can't be done if you're not in the game.
Yeah.
If you ain't got no skin in the game, you ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying? And
it's worth
I
it,
say take the chance. I mean, if you don't like it, then you don't have to. I mean, I'm not saying like quit your job and dump all your life savings into one book and hope everything's the best.
Listen, as someone who quit his job and put all of his life savings into one book, don't do that. It does not go well. I became so broke so quickly off the confidence that this was going to make me the same amount of money. And I will tell you this right now, not only did it not make me the same amount of money, it did not make me any amount of money. And it is so expensive to make books that are going to compete. So do not quit your job to do this. I had a very cushy office job. I was a technical writer. I worked for automotive companies. Like if you saw people talking about brake parts like on Amazon, I wrote that stuff. And let me tell you, I had an office. It was air conditioned. There was a vending machine right there. It was great. Nobody came and bothered me because HR was one thing down, and they knew if they said anything off kilter, they'd get in trouble. So I just got to sit there in my little cubicle writing about car parts. And I quit because I was like, I can make comic books. And let me tell you, I made comic books and lost everything. So like if I can tell you anything, it's keep the job, still make the comic books, just do it at night. Do it in between pages. You get that nice bonus at Christmas time, that 30 cents or whatever company dividend they give you. Take that, save that up, make a comic book. Because if you quit your job, you have to sell comic books. You got to make the best book ever because you got to compete with the Tinians and the Snyders. And you got to make something really awesome. You don't have any luxuries. You got to be out there shilling. You got to go live on TikTok for an hour every day at TS Luther, and you got to hope that's a really good question about Batman. Otherwise, you're just talking to yourself the whole time. And you got to get on Kickstarter every month and sell Hellion and Bash issue 1 and issue 2. And you got to meet people like Mr. Fish Comics and try to let him get him to let you write stuff for his books because there's no more money coming in. And then it's really, really desperate. So don't quit your job. Make the books with everything else that you have because you're going to go broke real quick. Also, don't do 1 million submission like pitch packets if you've never made a book before and self-published. You will go broke even faster, and no one will read any of them because they've never heard of you. Do that now after you've self-published like 5 books and you're working with publishers. Then you make pitch packets. Don't make the pitch packets first because that one anthology you put on Comixology is not going to make anybody interested in reading your pitch packets. It doesn't matter what artist you hired from Marvel. They don't care. No one's heard of you. They're not going to buy the book from you. And again, this is all hypothetical. Definitely don't know anybody who did this exact thing and had to start over from square one. So
this is just another pitch for another book. Yeah, the story
exactly.
of making comics.
I have so much money. Can't you tell from my 1-bedroom apartment?
No, and that's the thing. I say this all the time. if you're trying to get into comics to be rich, guess what? I can save you the trouble because it's not going to fucking happen.
There's
But
one guy in comics. His name was Robert Kirkman, and he got rich off selling the rights to the comic. He didn't even make it off the comic book. Nobody is rich in comic books. Like, that just doesn't happen. Even if you're successful, even if you're Tom King, who claims he's gotten wealthy off of it, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like, you don't make a ton of money. You can make a living. You can make it a career.
There's a difference. Yeah,
but there's a difference between getting rich off your comics and getting paid to make them. Because, like, I get paid to make them now.
Yeah, no.
Very, very little. But
somebody's getting rich from those comics, but it's definitely not Tom King.
No,
it's definitely not Snyder.
It's 4 levels up.
Right. Somebody's getting rich. I don't know if it's the writer.
Exactly. It stays pay to play too. That doesn't really go away. Like, to let some people behind the scenes, a lot of publishers, what they'll do, and like, we'll take Image for example. Image isn't even going to solicit your book unless you have 3 in the can. So that means out of your pocket, you need to produce 3 whole issues of your book, even if it's a 5-issue run. Like, you have to have several of those made up already before they even send it out to like previews to publishers or to distributors and to local comic book shops. So you have to shell out all of that money up front before you'll even see a dime back. And then you don't get paid like day one when they're selling at the comic book shop. You got to wait months and months before you're paid out what they've made. And you only get a percentage of that back. Like, for instance, we're looking at a September release for The Digger from Invader Comics. No one is getting even a small paycheck from the Digger until the next year. That includes Invader, that includes me, when everybody gets paid out from that, if it sells enough. So, like, even if you do get paid, you're still paying so much up front and you're waiting forever. And comic books move slow and you still have to eat, even if your book's not coming out that month. Yeah. You know, your kids still got to eat. You still got to pay rent while you're waiting. So, like, it's so expensive to get started and to stay in it. Even once you get to the higher levels, you're still shelling out a lot of money. Most companies, if you're not working for Marvel or DC, aren't paying your artists for you, aren't like keeping everything going. They're not going to pair you up with somebody. They're not paying for it to be printed up front. Like, there's so many things that you don't think about that you have to pay for.
Oh my God.
The entire time, even once you're doing it professionally.
Even
truer words have never been said.
Even in the big two, and there's something like sometimes fans don't know, because like they might read the books, collect the books, but they don't watch interviews. They don't talk to creators. Even big time creators sometimes are told, like, they have a pitch for DC, for example, and they say DC will come back. It's like, okay, we're not necessarily looking to do a Jenny Sparks comic or a Black Canary comic right now, but if you're willing to do let's say a mainline Wonder Woman for us, we'll let you do Jenny Sparks. We'll let you do Black Canary.
Exactly.
Not talking about Tom King, but no, for real. Tom King says in different interviews that he didn't pitch for Wonder Woman.
Right.
DC came to him, and he had no idea what he was gonna do. Right? He said, "But I listen. I don't know about Wonder Woman, but I do have a story about Jenny Sparks. Who? I have a story about Black Canary. Who? No, this is what the stories I want to tell. Okay, we'll let you do 2 miniseries.
Yep.
But you'll have to do Wonder Woman for us."
I was just listening to Matt Rosenberg's podcast, the Ideas Don't Bleed, and he was talking about the exact same thing. Like, he wanted to pitch DC a thing, and they're like, "Listen, we'll let you do that, but you got to do this other series, and then we'll spin that out of it because we need this issue coming out right now because it's going to tie into this movie." And like, that's how it goes. And that's what, like, I get asked a lot, like, "Oh, what would you write for Marvel or DC?" I'm like, anything they'd let me, because I'm a small guy. I'm not going to pitch. That's not what's going to happen. They're not going to come to me and go, "What do you want to do with Spider-Man, T.S. Luther?" What they're going to do, some editor's going to take pity on me because he read Hellion and Bash and saw me crying outside in the alleyway after a con, and he's going to give me a 2-page backup in some yearly anthology thing, and I'm going to get 1 page on Stiltman, and if I'm at DC, I might get a single panel Dog Welder. I get to write 1 panel of Dog Welder backup in the yearly Batman, and like, that's what's going to happen.
If you're lucky. if you're lucky, they'll put like an anthology book of like the different
Right.
hits that Marvel has, and you'll get to write
No, no, no.
a zero dialogue story
Oh,
about
dude, I would
Jeff.
love to write about Jeff.
Or,
He would get a Condiment King,
Oh,
but
God.
only after he's already been beat up for a full issue.
Listen, I would.
He has his jaw's broken, so there's no dialogue.
He can't talk at all because they had to save money on a letterer, so they said that there's no onomatopoeia, no dialogue. You get one artist for 2 pages. And listen, but like
that's one hell of a pitch, right? Like,
hold on,
you get
what
to
do we just do?
pitch
Hold
a
on, there's a
story,
thing
and they're
here.
like, we're gonna cut you off the anthology because like we're running out of money, and you'll be like, what if I rearrange the story? We know dialogue, so you'll save money on the lettering.
And
they're
we
like,
just tell him that
let me run the numbers, and I'll get back to you.
So he couldn't hear. So you were just telling it from the story of it.
Dude,
oh, wait a minute.
That issue of Hawkeye is one of the best comics ever
Yeah.
written. You know what I mean? Like, I would definitely do it. And I would listen. I'm going to throw it out there and make like it's all hubris. I'm all lying, but I would slay that Condiment King story. Okay, if
you know what you would,
Dog Welder, I would kill it. Okay,
you would. I've actually like I people could say, oh yeah, I agree. No, you would kill that Condiment King role for sure.
man.
That would. Shit, now that's one of my goals now, to make sure somehow, some way.
Listen, if you get there and let me ride your coattails, I will write that Condiment King for you. That's the thing I tell people all the time. They're like, who would you love to write? And I'm like, well, I'd love to write anybody they let me, but they're not going to let me write those ones. So like what I have in my back pocket, like I joke about Dog Welder, I got a Dog Welder pitch. I have a Gold Balls right? Like I have the pitch because I'm like, they're not going to give me Wolverine. They might give me Gold Balls. Like that might happen. Like I might be able to talk them into a Gold Balls miniseries. So it's like Hank. No, which one was the agent of Hydra? Was it Hank? I don't remember. He had a one shot like way back when, right? Like give me Hank, agent of Hydra for 2 issues. I can do something with that because you don't get to decide what you do at those places. You got to take the scraps that you're giving and you got to turn them into gold. And it's the same reason why I don't go into my pitch meetings with all of my ideas sold already. I pride myself on being able to come up with them on the spot. I used to play this game. I had a podcast called Pitch for Pitch, and because it was a party trick I would do. I would have somebody yell out like a genre or a type of movie, and then somebody yell out like a property. So it was like Romeo and Juliet, but with Transformers. Bro. And I would do that, and I loved doing this. I would get drunk and do it at parties, and so I started a podcast doing it. And this is what I do in pitch meetings. We were like, I don't know. What if could we do Matrix with swords? I'm like, let me pitch you Matrix with swords right now, you know? Like, and that's how you get those jobs. You got to be able to play on the fly, man.
Ask Gear. I literally do that with like everything. Like
man.
He'll say something and I'll literally just write a pitch. He's like, holy shit. That would be awesome. I'm like,
exactly. But that's what you got to be able to do. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is that ideas are, I hate saying worthless because they're not worthless, but it's all in the execution. The idea part's the easy part. So if you practice, if you write enough, like you said, like it's like a party trick, right? Like when people go, I can't believe you came up with that awesome pitch. I'm like, don't ask me to write 30 pages of this, but like I can give you the pitch. I can give you 7 bullet points to make you go, oh, damn, that'd be dope. Because I'm like, I don't know what would happen on page 4 of that pitch, but like I can sell you bullet points.
We was talking about that earlier in Luther's live. Like anybody can do a what if story, right? But where it matters is in the execution, like how much or how good you can flush out that what if, right? Like Batman and Robin, but what if Batman was intentionally abusing Robin? Right? That's a good premise. That's a good what if.
That's not a what if. That's every Batman story ever written. Sorry. My bad. I'm not supposed to pop the bubble. My fault. Continue here. I'm sorry.
But how good can you tell the story? How you can flush it out? Because like a premise, anything could be a good premise, right? Yeah. But how good you execute that? Like, where are you gonna turn that story? Like, where are you gonna take that story? Like, going back to Vicarious, like the premise of Vicarious is that you have this world where people can put these implants on their body and they become proxies. And then you have people in the internet that go on the web and they become linkers, and then they can vicariously live whatever experience you give them through the technology of the implant, right? Like it's a 5 sense experience. They can see, they can hear, they can feel, they can taste everything, right? That's a good premise. Now, how many stories, how many experiences you can flush
Right.
out
Can
from
you
that
execute
premise,
on that well?
right?
Like that's the biggest
Exactly.
ask. How many manga or anime do you see? I'm like, that's a dope premise. I could not do it for 50 issues. Like it went too long. Like they said everything they could say with it, and then they had to make up new stuff. I see so many people send me their feedback and they ask me stuff like, hey, what do you think of this idea? And I'm like, well, to be honest with you, that's a dope idea. That doesn't mean anything. And I can't give you feedback because you haven't written the issue. You haven't made the issue yet. I could give you serious notes if you've done more. But just the idea, I'm like, I don't know. What do I say? That's a dope idea. That's a terrible idea.
No, that is so, and I don't think people understand how difficult it is to turn an idea into actually. I don't know in other mediums, but in comics especially, like I've told numerous people about my plans for issue 2. They're like, "Oh my god, that sounds great." I'm like, "It sounds great, yes, but I've got to figure out how the hell
on it
to get it on the page.
How do you make it into a
Like,
story?
and
How you make it into a story? A compelling story.
so critical to the success and the actual feel of the book. It just because you have an idea doesn't mean you can actually execute it.
And you don't even have to have a good idea. Like, I mean, Tokyo Fire is a dumb idea. There's too much. If I were to pitch that to Hollywood, there's a hat on too many things. There's a revolution. They got superpowers and cyberpunk. Hold on. Let's get rid of half of that. You know what I mean?
That's 4 genres. We need a minimum
like,
of 2, maximum of 2.
Yeah, let's bring it down a notch. You know what I mean? And John Wick. John Wick is dumb. That's a dumb idea. Okay, you killed his dog. He's mad about it. And you're like, hold on. Keanu Reeves, he's mad. He's sexy. He's got a gun. You're like, I'm in. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Wait,
in
they
the
killed a dog? You know what? Let's do
it. Let him
I'm gonna give it a shot. I understand that anger. I get it. So hold on. Shush. I understand. We're just gonna sit here and watch this.
We're gonna watch it happen. But that's the thing is, like, it doesn't. Like, you can have a terrible idea, or you can have an awesome idea. It's all in the execution. And I feel bad because what they really want when they send me these ideas is they want someone they perceive who is doing the thing that they want to be doing, and they want to be told that it's okay. They want the go ahead.
Yeah.
And like, you don't need it. Go ahead, go forth, conquer, do the thing. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't just get into making comic books because I loved all the comic books, right? I read tons of comic books I didn't like, and I had to put my money where my mouth was and go, I think I can do it better. If not better, I think I can do it where more people would enjoy my book than they would, you know? Like, I'm not just inspired by the books I love. I'm also inspired by the books I didn't love. You know, like it's a big part of it. So like, don't worry if your idea's dumb. Most of my ideas are terrible, but like I might be able to convince a few people that they're good by how good I write them. And like, it's okay to have a dumb idea. Some of the best stories are terrible ideas.
No, and you know, I appreciate anyone who is still hanging around. We're at an hour and a half.
Oh man,
we keep trying. Me and you talk all the time about trying to keep these at an hour, and we just can't seem to fucking do it. So
I told Luther this was going to be a yapping festival because he's a yapper, you're a yapper. I sometimes can't shut up either. You can ask my wife. So I knew this was going to happen. That's why I haven't said anything. I haven't gone.
An hour and a half is a good round number. This is great. Like, this is what we meant to do.
I agree, and that's why what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna give you these last few minutes. I want you to pitch everyone to go on and get into Hellion and Bash. Tell them where they can find the current issues as well as Kickstarter, so we can push this out and try to make this happen as much as we can. We're a little podcast. We have some nice little amounts of followers, but anything we can do, we will. So the floor is yours, and watch this. I'm even gonna make it all. Wait, hold on. Wrong one.
Bait and switch.
There we go.
All right. All eyes on me. Check this out. So let me zoom out so I don't get all blurry here. Hellion and Bash issue number 2 is live on Kickstarter right now. If you love me, if you hate me, go check it out. It's gonna be awesome. If you like books like Invincible, The Victories, The Boys, the gritty, but not just for gritty's sake, but the more adult-oriented superhero stories, this is the book for you. The entire pitch is who saves the sidekick from the superhero. You have your Robins, your Speedies, your Alphas. If you're a Spider-Man fan, you have these sidekicks, and you can ask the question, well, hey, should they be doing this? But you don't follow that to its natural end conclusion because you want to read Batman and Robin. That's the fun part. You don't care about Hellion. You don't care about Gargoyle. You don't know who these people are. So you can ask that question in this book. And that's what we do. You have this sidekick who's the world's greatest sidekick, and he's being abused by his superhero. And no one's doing a dang thing about it because you have Batman. Who's going to stand up to Batman? I'm afraid of Batman. I'm not going to do that, right? And you have the people who could stand up to Batman, but they have to ask the question, should I? Because if we take Batman off the board because he's a bad guy, who protects the world the next time Darkseid attacks? Who saves the world if Batman's off the table because he's kind of a bad dad, right? So you have these people who are complacent and complicit in this kid's abuse. So who steps up but the supervillains? You have the world's greatest cat burglar, Bash, basically this world's Catwoman, and he goes, hey, this isn't okay. I don't care about, Batman. I don't care about Gargoyle. I'm going to go save this kid, and I don't care who stops me. And he's got to go on the run from the entire superhero community. And that's really at the heart of it, what the story is about. You have this unsuspecting father figure on the run from every superhero and their mom who's trying to protect this kid who also was a superhero and the shenanigans that ensue. And it all starts with a giant kaiju attack. You have this definitely legally distinct character, definitely not Sauron from Marvel, the pterodactyl, this giant green pterodactyl, and he attacks the city unwillingly. And when all the superheroes are busy, you have Bash, the world's greatest super thief, and he goes, this is a great time for me to rob everybody because they're busy. I can just go do my thing, and he's enjoying the chaos. Did I mention he has luck powers? So he can dodge debris and walk around, and nothing gets in the way. And what he uncovers unravels an entire domino effect. He sees all these sinister secrets from the superhero community, and he's got to do something about it. Because at the end of the day, you can be a superhero, but that doesn't mean you're a good person. And we have to ask ourselves, is he a supervillain or is he the hero that we need? So please go and check that out. It is live on Kickstarter right now. It's Hellion and Bash issue number 2, but you can pick up both. So if you want to pick up and catch up, you can do that on the Kickstarter as well. So issues 1 and 2 are live right there. The second the Kickstarter is done, you'll be able to pick up copies of both issues at professionalentropy.com. That's the publisher. Those are the people that wrote me a big check and were really dumb and gave me a chance to write comic books. So if you want to thank them, go check out professionalentropy.com. But until then, go check out the Kickstarter. Again, I don't know how many more times they're going to write me a check. So definitely take a chance and, throw me a bone and check out issue 1 and 2. We sell them really cheap. They're $5 an issue. They're comparable to Marvel or DC. You're not breaking the bank. I know most indies, we got to charge $10. I'm lucky enough to keep that price down. So you can pick up any of my books over there for $5. Digital, physical. I sell the scripts on there. If you want to learn how to write comics, if you want to see how I do it, you can pick up my scripts. We sell stickers now too. I'm trying to look around to see if I have any. I don't think I have any right here, but because everybody asked for stickers last time, so you can get a sticker of Pterodactyl or Yeti Man. We have lots of other cool merch. You can pick up all my old books. I think that's it for me to shill. I think that's everything I can do. Last minute, go check out Green Zone number 4, also on Kickstarter. I edited it for my buddy Mr. Fish, and I think he's got maybe 10 hours left on that campaign, and I also get paid to do that. So if you want to throw me a really big bone, go pick up that too. Oh, I think that's all I have to plug. Something took over me. I felt the Holy Spirit came in to sell books. Is that what happens when people speak in tongues? Is that how it goes? Stan Lee came into my body, true believers.
The comic gods were speaking through you, my son, and it was glorious. But I want to thank you very much for stopping by. I'm gonna say this unequivocally. You are always welcome on Planet Nerdtooine.
Thank you.
Every issue you got, just let me know when you want to come on, and we'll make time for you.
Heck yeah, man! This was a blast. I love doing this. Please have me on. Don't stop doing this podcast again, because I'm going to be listening now, and I want to be on.
No. Don't worry. That's not happening. I'm too committed. And I'm paying for shit now, so it's gonna happen. Okay, I gotta get my money's worth. I have no other way.
That's a good way. If you want to get over the hump of not getting stuff done, put money into it. Buy that gym outfit that you've been looking at, because then you gotta justify it. If you're paying Planet Fitness, you gotta be in there on Sunday.
Right.
That's how it goes. Pay for the podcast, you'll do it every week.
But again, everyone who stopped by, if you've lasted with this hour and 33 minutes, we appreciate you. This will be, it's already live, so it's going to be on instantaneously. The audio version will be up by tomorrow. And then me and Year will be back with a new episode, with actually part 2 of the episode
Oh, that's right.
That'll drop on Sunday, where we do what is Years issue part 2. We also are going to do a review for Stellar Lands issue 2, which we had a great time reading and loved.
Heck yeah.
As well as a kind of preview for what we're going to be doing on the next episode when we bring in JJ's Comics to talk about everything that's going on with Diamond and how big this really is. And I don't think enough people are as worried as we are. And I definitely think that we're going to have a great episode with that. But again, I thank you all for stopping by. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.